Real. Developing Trust with Therapeutic Touch. We have Tanya Levy and Stefanie Butschek today. Have you considered that your inability to move forward to get different results might be held back by your ability to trust the outcome, the possibilities, or even the success? What role does trust play in your daily decisions and in your well-being? Today, I'm joined by two amazing colleagues that I meet with once a month to exchange therapeutic touch sessions. Tanya is a counselor out of our local college and a registered practitioner for therapeutic touch. And Stefanie Butschek is the member chair for the Atlantic Therapeutic Touch Network and is also a registered practitioner for therapeutic touch. I'm a registered practitioner as well, and I share my passion for TT through ATTN, as well as with the Canadian Association of Bioenergetic Wellness, or we like to just refer to it as Can Be Well, and that's where I sit on the leadership team. So today we're going to dive into some topics that we love in the areas that we work. Hello to the two of you.
Hello.
Hello.
We always begin our TT sessions by bringing up a subject for consideration, and this week it was a doozy. We went into trust and off we went. And we just felt like this was a topic that needed to be really discussed further, but through the filter of therapeutic touch. And that's one that isn't often talked about in that capacity. So that's where we're going to take our dive today. And I want to just ask Tanya first, what tea did you make before you got on the call?
So this is fit as a fiddle. So I'll show you what it looks like in the pot. It's a beautiful kind of reddish color. And I'm also tested, and that's what my body wanted. So
Awesome. And Fit as a Fiddle is part of Natalie McMaster's set or series, and its focus is on the orange pekoe tea. And I'm just going to bring up for people, orange pekoe, the ingredients within that calms the nervous system while opening the mind. So as many people will often think they're just getting a caffeine fix, it's actually not that. We have this opportunity to change our nervous system through a cup of tea. So thanks for choosing that one today, so I could say that piece. Stefanie, what have you got?
I have a green tea. I like green tea with honey and ginger.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And green tea, for those people that maybe haven't tried green tea, when you don't boil the water, it keeps it going from going bitter. And that's really important. I talk to a lot of people that don't know that, and they just assume green tea is a bitter tea. And it actually is a very mellow, full body flavor, and can be just, it's like a warm hug actually for me when I'm drinking the green tea. Yeah. Beautiful. So today we're going to highlight honeybush, which comes out of Highland Splendor, which is the tea I've got in my mug today. And the affirmation for it is, from the top of the mountain, we are inspired. And as we're talking about trust today, I thought this was a great place for us to think about if we're on the other side of trust, or if we've climbed the mountain to gain trust, and we're standing there and we can look, where are we now? What do we see? How big is that picture? What would we have missed if we hadn't have chosen to trust? And so I wanted to draw your attention to that idea, but then bring in two ingredients. So honeybush. This is very similar to a rooibos, but it has a soft honey flavor that brings in a little bit of sweetness without adding any sugar. It's great for softening bitterness in black tea or green tea. So you'll see it a lot of times in the blends that I use at the Cape Breton Tea Company. Honeybush is a protector for us. It supports our circulatory system and the way that the heart functions. And with it being a protector, we can release our need to hold back from trying new things or moving forward. So there's that little trust piece in there. Then we go to the Earl Grey. So I talked about the black tea as having an opportunity to calm the nervous system. Earl Grey works the same way, but because of the bergamot, not because of the black tea quality, but the actual bergamot infusion that it gets. Sometimes it's through the flower, sometimes it's through the essential oil. It is a great ally for trying something new or building trust to move forward. That's actually its essence. And most people, when they engage with the Earl Grey, it has a regal feel to it. So a lot of times they just talk about part of the monarchy or part of being at the top of something. So again, if you're thinking of the top of the mountain, this is a great way to think about it. So with these two powerful herbs and the teas that you brought on today, I say cheers. Thank you for being here. And slàinte.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, so that sets the stage for us. We have our intention set. We have the power of the herbs bringing us forward. And now what we'd like to do is actually do what we do in Therapeutic Touch, which is offer a meditation. And Stefanie's going to offer one compassion meditation.
All right. So everyone, make sure that you sit in a comfortable position. Make sure that your feet are solidly on the ground. And breathe easily in and out. This meditation is called compassion. We all deserve to be treated with compassion. That compassion can start with how you treat yourself. Your value is not what you do. Your value is who you are. That value is intrinsic. Don't let anyone take this away from you. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise, especially yourselves. And whenever you're ready, come back to the room.
Beautiful. Thank you, Stefanie.
Thank you.
That was a lovely way to end the week.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. We got to start the week with it, and we got to finish the week with it.
Yeah.
How grand is that? So Tanya, why don't you start our conversation off by sharing a little bit about what it means to learn therapeutic touch and how it helps to hone the skills that allow us to trust.
Well, I first learned therapeutic touch in 2014 because I walked into a class you were teaching on Touch for Health, and I found out that they were teaching level 1, Therapeutic Touch Foundations, and I went and took the class with you and our fellow colleague. And I think that for me, it's a reminder that everything is energy. And so we can lean into good energy or we can lean into negative energy. And to become more aware of what energy we bring and what energy sometimes we allow in or receive. And I think that trust comes in as we begin to trust that awareness. So whether I'm working with students at the college and counseling them, or I'm noticing that a coworker is having a bad day, or I think about a friend, they cross my mind, or I'm aware that someone's ill and I want to offer some healing energy to them. It's about trusting that awareness, and I think that learning therapeutic touch increases that trust. And I think that it also gives the tools, as Stefanie talked about in the meditation, to value ourselves in that awareness. that we are someone that can offer, that can create an environment that can support someone's healing, that we have value and also have compassion to ourselves if we're having a day when we can't offer therapeutic touch, because sometimes when we're ill or stressed, we know it's not a good day to offer it. We just really need to be aware that we need to fill our cup and go back to that place of stability and groundedness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so as you're working with people, building their skills as they're continuing their education, how has those additions of concepts really supported your students?
I'm much more aware of nonverbal,
Mm-hmm.
even though counseling is a very word dominated occupation because you're talking and listening. I've learned to listen beyond the words and notice body language and ask about body language. I might say to a student, I notice when you talk about that, you don't look at me or you look at the floor. I notice today that when you're in my office, all you're doing is playing with the fidget tool. Are you stressed about something? Whereas in the past, I might not have noticed that nonverbal. I might not have noticed the energy around the words or within the words. And I also think that I notice um, my own words and what they mean and how to create an environment because I think people are experts on their own healing. And I think that it's important to see it as a partnership of healing and working together towards healing and teaching people tools so they can heal. So I think another piece of the therapeutic touch uh, foundations course is that it's taught me more about being centered myself and being grounded myself so then I can teach that centering and grounding to students, which allows them to have more control over their lives or more trust in themselves or to build their own awareness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Stefanie, we got into a discussion about, trusting is one piece, but then there's this letting go piece and how much people really do try to hold on. Can you share a little bit about what it means in TT to be able to let go?
First of all, it's really crucial in TT that we, as the person offering the healing session, we detach from the outcome. And it's not in our hands. So the healing, actually, we're just offering, we're facilitating the healing process of our healing partner. Like Tanya said before, we're in a healing partnership. And we support the other person in their own healing process, but it's not up to us how this is going, right? But we have to trust. So we come back to the trust in the process. And the more trust we manage to build with our healing partner, the more open this healing partnership is going to be, and the better certainly the energy can flow in this, because the ground, or what it's based on, is compassion, right? So, and the more trust we have, the more compassion we're gonna create, the more open our heart's gonna be, ours and the healing partners as well, the better and the easier chances are that the energy can flow freely and for the best outcome.
Mm-hmm.
But then, as I said, we detach from the outcome. So usually in my experience, people are really relaxed after. Often they report that they have less pain. Often they just have a very relaxed smile on their face, and sometimes a little bit of an astonishment because sometimes people don't expect just how relaxed they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is very rewarding. And for myself too, I'm very relaxed after every session because I'm so also focusing on my own centering and grounding and letting go. It's like you work in a meditative state, and that is very rewarding for myself as well. So it's an absolute win-win situation.
Mm-hmm. And I know we talked about that letting go of outcome, because a lot of times when people are trying to support each other, we want them to be better, but that isn't our journey. It isn't our responsibility. What we're there to do is support and then trust in the process. And when we open in that trusting piece, then things can change. And I just think that's just one of those lovely nuggets of therapeutic touch, because so much of what we try to do, we try to push to get that result.
We don't. We always only offer.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a very big difference, right? So we just offer. And then it's up to the healing partner if he wants to take and accept and process and support themselves, or if they don't. There might be reasons why they won't, but that's not up to us to judge or even to analyze.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I often think of it as giving over.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm working with a student and I'm really stuck in a specific outcome, like I really want them to be successful in a course, for example, and they're not doing anything to be successful in the course for whatever reason of what's happening in their life at the moment. But I have faith that they're going to figure it out, and they're ghosting me. And that's usually when I sit down and I say, okay, I've done everything in my control, probably too much. I've offered. So now I need to give over to the universe, give over to, you know, it's kind of like the serenity prayer. Get me the wisdom to know the things that aren't in my control,
Mm-hmm.
and giving over. And I think sometimes it's an important reminder that really I was never in control to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I think control is an illusion, and the more therapeutic touch I do, the more I realize it's this whole process of offering, and then the healing partner chooses how they respond. And it's the same thing. And as soon if I wake up in the morning and I say, my intention today is offer divine love, and those who choose to receive, receive, and those who choose don't. But all I'm going to do is offer divine love. It's the day flows so much easier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. And um, I was saying to my Tai Chi class last night that same thing about setting up my day, offering out, and if they needed something, to just pick it up, and not to make sure that they connect with me to find out if something's going on, how can they get into a class, how can they, none of that. Just if you need something, then just ask. And I think so many people too forget to ask. So they hope the universe is going to have their back and they're going to be able to heal, but they also haven't asked. So they have to make that extra piece in that way. Yeah.
Or to set an intention, you can put it that way too, which is a crucial piece as well, right? If you don't know what you want or how you want to, it's really important to figure out how do you want to, if you have some pain, how do you want to feel if it would be gone? And then focus on that. Focus on a positive outcome, whatever it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But that is very crucial. Set the intention
Mm-hmm.
to where you want to be and how you want to feel.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when my son was really young and I was a single parent, and one of the older parents in a group I belonged to said to me, I always thought it was easier for a child to do something if I talked about the positive outcome after. So instead of saying, come on, come get your bath, come on, come get your bath, come on, come get your bath, she said I would say something like, let's go play in the bathtub, or let's go sing in the bathtub, or let's go read in the bathtub. And then it was more of a something to look forward to. And that really stuck with me because I began to notice all the times I was more stuck on, you have to do this versus let's go do this fun thing. And it was the same thing, the same activity, but it was how I framed it to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really wise wisdom on her part. And I'm not explaining it as well as I would like, but the point is, it was easier to focus on the positive part of the activity and get buy-in.
And I think too, as you were saying, Stefanie, with how people feel after a TT session, they can't believe that they could be so relaxed, or they can't believe
Yeah.
that pain is gone, or that even that stiffness has disappeared. And that realization that it is possible and it can be achieved again. And one of the things that over the last few weeks for me has been, so many people who've been in chronic pain for a long time, they're always looking for the next pain. So if the pain in the hip leaves, then they're like, yes, but now I have this pain in my knee. And they don't know how to differentiate from feeling good, because they're always looking for the thing that's going to be next, because that's the way it's been. And then to stop in a TT session and be able to realize, I can feel this good, and I could repeat this, and that it's possible to stay here. And then if I'm not staying here after a series of things that have gone on at home, to be able to look at what happened at home that put you back into that stress state. And then at least, if you come back to therapeutic touch, you have this opportunity to bring that relaxed state back again. And it is possible to make that achievement. And that's a hard thing to trust, because a chronic pain person is living in pain every day. And it seems like it just never changes, that it's always there. But that isn't actually true. So that opportunity to think a little bit differently with it.
And it's the same with thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
People who have a trauma history have a negativity bias.
Mm-hmm.
So they tend to focus on the negative, and that's what they notice.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. McCanson talks about focusing on the good, but we have to train ourselves to focus on the good if we're trained to focus on the negative. And I think therapeutic touch is a way to help people focus on the good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a pretty profound statement when you think about PTSD, think about mental health, and that the tool is just sitting there waiting for people to discover it. Yeah. Stefanie, how is the way that you do things at home and the way that you live your life, how's it been affected by the opportunity of the skills of therapeutic touch?
What really helped me most is that I really learned how to ground and how to center myself. Mm-hmm. That is the most important part for me and in my daily life. So as soon as I start or realize something is going on, I just try to stop for a second, ground myself, make sure my feet are solidly on the ground. So for me, centering is, I help myself really by breathing. I consciously breathe, and I have to breathe anyhow, right? Mm-hmm. So I just put my focus on it, and I breathe in really deeply all the way down my belly and then out my feet. And usually it's just 1 or 2 breaths and I'm centered. And I'm just off, I'm just out of whatever situation just for a second. It doesn't take long. Mm-hmm. And that already helps so much. So that really, really helped me a lot. And I'm just way more, I was always very sensitive, mm-hmm. but it gave me, TT offered me the tools to work a little bit more with it, and putting my awareness, in different ways. So how I perceive energy changed. It's mm-hmm. way more diverse. So it's not only sensing something emotionally, so I'm very emotionally sensitive, mm-hmm. but it also helped me being aware in different ways too. Like sometimes I would see colors or sounds, or I would hear things, and that is just, it's just very enriching. It's just very, very cool.
Mm-hmm. And especially when, like you said, when you realize that you're seeing a vision of something, you might be able to see forward, or you might be able to see a new idea or a new way of solving things. But you start to recognize these little clues that they might have been there before, but they weren't predominant enough for you to think they were of value. Yeah. And then you have this ability to trust that what you are seeing allows you a new way of moving forward. and
Exactly.
and
So it's
the
a trust. Yeah, I learned more to trust in the things I would just pick up before, as I said, on an emotional level, and
mhm,
not being sure sometimes, am I wrong? I'm just too sensitive, blah, blah. But now I know, well, what I pick up is very valid, but I
mhm,
have, um, but I can use, use is not a good word for it, but I can do something with it now. I don't feel, so to say, helpless or overwhelmed. I'm more comfortable with it because I know what I can do with it. And sometimes just grounding it or just letting go is already a start, right? And then I can go from there.
mhm, mhm. And I appreciate the self-empowerment piece, that in lots of situations we get ourselves into it, something we've never done before. It's a stressful situation. There's been a crisis, and a lot of people don't know what they can do. And I think for me, knowing that I might not know what to do, but I can have the confidence to know that if I take some of my TT skills, I can make a difference. And it could be as simple as grounding or centering a person in a crisis or in an accident scene, or first aid. You don't have exactly everything that you need, but you at least can calm the person down until you can get what you need. And that empowerment that I'm not helpless here and I can make a difference just with a simple change of how I approach it. And I think that's what I've enjoyed the most out of the skills that I've developed. What are you thinking, Tanya?
But there's a clearing piece to it.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about grounding and centering, but I also find it helps me clear, whether you want to call it stress or stuck energy or negative thoughts or funk. It just helps me clear things out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Some people might call it your aura, but to clear, like if I feel the funk building, it's a way for me to, not the good funk, but the negative funk. If I feel it building, it's a way to kind of go, okay, hold on, let's just
Mm-hmm.
stop, breathe, clear,
Mm-hmm.
ground center. I think that, and there's been some heavy energy afoot lately with, the various things happening in our world. And I think to have those tools to clear and release and ground and center are so important. And I think it's empowering when we have those tools
Mm-hmm.
because then they're easy to use. They don't cost money. They're accessible to all, right?
You don't have to wait for the schedule for an appointment that could be months. You can have daily right now. Here it is, ready to go. Yeah.
And like Stefanie, I mean, I heard my whole life, you're so sensitive. You're so sensitive. How come you're so sensitive? And now therapeutic touch is a way to help me be sensitive and embrace it as a superpower, I guess, instead of trying to hide it or make it vanish or pretend it isn't so. And
Mm-hmm.
then it helps me help other people that are empathic and intuitive and sensitive. And, I'll even go as far to say neurodivergent. It helps me show them that, it's a way to be present in our bodies and our lives and feel good about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the knowledge that everything is energy, just simple that fact I find empowering, and that everything is in flow. By
Mm-hmm.
knowing that everything is in flow, I can always trust, and I'm sure everything can change too, and it will all the time. And I can be open to it or I'm not. But if I'm open to it, in a way, it frees me in a way, because I know even if I'm maybe stuck in a situation, I know the next second it can be up, it can change, because we're all energy and everything is energy, and energy is changing all the time, and everything is in flow. And I find that gives me just so much joy, right? Because I know, well, everything will pass and go, and Yeah, I
Mhm,
love that.
mhm,
And I'm thankful that if I feel stuck in a situation, or I have, like, let's say I have a flare up for my eye, because that's a chronic condition that I do deal with, then I can message you or Michelle or our colleague
mhm,
Natasha or our colleague Paula in Ontario and just say, so if you have any extra energy to offer, could you just offer a little my way? And it feels so less isolating, right? Like, because sometimes when we're in pain, we're dealing with something that we've dealt with before, but it's a flare up of some sort, and we don't always have the energy in that moment to offer ourselves. We know I have such gratitude for the whole network of people that are willing to we support each other.
mhm,
And I think that's a beautiful thing.
mhm, mhm. I'm thinking also about what I often tell people, which is these tools everyone should have in their toolbox. This should be like a no-brainer for how you start in life is to have these skills. Particularly little people, it's lovely for them to be able to go over to somebody that just hurt themselves playing and to be able to take their hands and easily wash that away. It's just so empowering. But what I wanted to bring forward was as we do muscle monitoring in the Touch for Health work that I do and some of the other work that I do, many people will have, that we can't trust that biofeedback that's coming in. And what I've learned from therapeutic touch is sometimes what we can't trust is the information because we're trying to listen in a way that we're not receiving. And therapeutic touch has provided me with a way to listen in a different way. So if I'm muscle monitoring, which for those people listening who may not have ever heard this term, what we can do is we can check in with a muscle in the body to find out what's going on in different systems in the body. And we're just putting a little bit of pressure onto, it could be a limb, like it could be on the arm, and just a tiny bit of pressure, and either the arm and the muscles are going to hold or they're going to actually let go. Now, sometimes it's hard to tell. And so that's when they'll say it's not very valid because you can't really be sure. But with therapeutic touch, you have all these other cues that you've developed of, like Stefanie, when you said what you see or what you're hearing, but you also have what do you sense, your fingertips become quite sensitive to subtle changes in energy and maybe temperature. It could be also the way, as you were describing, Tanya, the way somebody's looking or their body language. And so there's all these other cues that you start to pay attention to. And now that muscle monitoring is important, but not as important as some of the other cues that are coming in. And for those people that work in the wellness industry, I just feel like that's such an incredible tool because then you really do trust the information that's coming to you. And you can take in so much more information to be able to work with. Um, is there anything that you've noticed, Tanya, when you've provided those cues to a student and they come back later on and they tell you how they've used them, watching that empowerment come forward?
I think they're more able to express their feelings or how they might be carrying stress in their body, or they're more able to identify what fills their cup or helps them ground or center. I think it's about building tools and awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it surprises them because I mean some students with a trauma history have never really focused on themselves at all.
Mm-hmm.
They've just been, giving to others or avoiding because it's painful, or they're always in fight or flight or freeze, or they flop or they fawn, but they've never really learned to be in a place of calm and centeredness, and to even get a glimpse of that and to build that space in their lives is, and then to come back and talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. let's take the conversation one more direction, because the three of us, we get together once a month, we trade sessions with each other, and we usually have one person who's receiving, one person that is offering, then we have one person that holds the space. And I think this is a key place where trust comes in as well, is when we're the person that's holding the space, we don't have to do anything except be present with the highest good, offering that compassion out, and then seeing what happens. You want to describe a little bit for either one of you what that feels like, um, being in that space and being a contributor without having to do anything?
I really like that triad format as well because oh, it's lovely to just sit there. It's not just sitting there and feeling it so much more. So you're really in that healing relationship, but in a really profound way, as you're not the one offering or receiving, you're just observing, but at the same time, you're receiving and offering. You do. I mean, it because you're just part of it. You just experience how we're all connected. You're just into it. You can't even you don't stay outside and observe. You're in it. You just realize we're all in it, and that is so profound. And it's so nice to exchange experiences after and what everyone saw or felt. It's just profound, and just feeling this heartfelt and compassionate and open connection is very valuable. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're very interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes observing, we notice things maybe that those receiving and offering don't notice, and then it enriches the experience.
Mm-hmm.
We might notice color or sound or receive a message or feel heat or warmth or just realize that, the person receiving the treatment needs even more grounding or, I mean, each treatment is um, unique, right? Each individual and, time and space and moment and who's receiving and who's offering and what's happening in that moment in nature or weather or, so you're just present there, right then. And I
Mm-hmm.
think being present is, I mean, I think the thing about observing is you're forced to be present.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really be distracted when you're observing. You're just there. And I think it's good for my busy mind to have moments where I'm just present and not trying to do another thousand things, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
our society wants us to not be present. It wants us to be busy thinking about things we want to buy and things we have to do and la 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 la.
Mm-hmm.
And I think observing is the opposite of all that.
I find myself too, if somebody's presenting and I'm in the audience, I become same thing, that observer holding the space for them, because they're going to be nervous about what they're doing. They might be
Yeah.
fighting with technology, different things are happening, and to just be able to sit and hold the space. So it's a skill that you develop, but then you don't even realize where you carry it to. But you do take it into rooms. You do take it into conversations with people.
And there's a compassion piece to it too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that human nature is to criticize and judge. And I'm not saying that there isn't a place. I mean, some behavior is hurtful and violent but I think most of us are just humans trying to get by. And sometimes when people complain or criticize to me, I just say, I have compassion for that person, for what they're trying to do, for what they're trying to experience. And I have compassion for myself. Um, I just think there's a lot of compassion in therapeutic touch.
Mm-hmm.
I think that care and compassion is how therapeutic touch began.
Yeah.
I mean, the people, the leaders who created it noticed that by offering care and compassion um, through hand movement and holding space, people got better. And they're like, what does that mean? And
Mhm.
all of a sudden, you know, it was a healing modality. But it began with compassion. And I think anything that begins with compassion is, powerful. Powerful in a way of being divine love.
Mhm.
Powerful in a different type of powerful.
I appreciate the way that you worded all that, um, because lots of times they'll say, "Well, what's the research? What's the science behind it?" And it really speaks for itself. They got better. That's it. They just got better, and each person is unique. So, in what way they got better, everybody's a little bit different. Whatever was important for that moment, that time.
I mean, it goes all the way back to my father. When I was about 12 years old, I said to him, how come your garden does so well, Dad? And he said, because I talk to my plants, dear. And I'm like, you talk to your plants? So A, he admitted he talked to his plants, and B, he, for lack of a better word, offered them love, which is what he did as a father, right? He offered us love. And I think that, as did my mother, in case she's listening and thinks I'm not loving her too. Um, but I think that that was probably my first glimpse into this idea that we don't live in a vacuum. You don't just throw seeds in the ground and then they just magically grow. There's a relationship there, a relationship with the energy around those plants, a relationship with the energy around human beings, around plants and animals. And so lots of times I have a sage plant in my office at work and I just put my hand over it and offer it love. And people come in and say, your plants are doing really well. And I go, I know. But it's because I talk to them and offer them love. I mean, I guess that's compassion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the thing is when we are compassionate and nurturing, we then become different because we're not rushing through life. We're stopping to notice, right? We're stopping to notice whatever it is around us that's alive. But so many times we walk by a tree or walk by a sunny sky and we don't even stop to notice.
Mm-hmm.
I might have got a bit off topic there.
I I don't think so. I think our audience is going to know we're all very passionate about it. Um, but then the value of that, because if each of us in our lives have been so enriched by these skills, um, why wouldn't you want to know how to do that? Why would you not want to pursue it, be empowered, and then be able to trust what's going on around you, that you have the power, capability to change things and to be grounding and centering quickly, but also to have value in a relationship or a room with other people. Yeah. Any last words, Stefanie?
Well, I think never underestimate the value of just being present. As Tanya said, being present in a compassionate and loving way and just listen. There's so much value to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anything for you, Tanya?
It's okay to stop, look, and listen.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to rush through our days. It's okay to slow down. I remember once a student stopped me in the hallway and she said, do you always walk this slow? And I'm like, probably. And she goes, I wish I could. I wish I
Yeah.
could take the time to be slow, and I didn't even notice. Like I was just walking the way that I walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here was a student thinking that that meant I was more present and aware.
Mm-hmm.
So of course my response was, well, you can. It just takes practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we
Mm-hmm.
don't know how we impact others
Mm-hmm.
by showing up and being present and compassionate, but I think we do. I think it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for those people listening, we belong to the Atlantic Therapeutic Touch Network. So Atlantic TTN.org
Dot
and
com.
.com. That's the one I always mix up. And there is a therapeutic touch network for Canada because it goes clear across the country, that there are chapters and people practicing all over Canada, but also internationally. And so then we have Therapeutic Touch International Association, and they offer meditations and connections on Friday afternoons. So if that's something that, as you're listening, you're thinking you'd like to be a little bit more involved, you know that you've got other ways you can connect. And on the Atlantic Therapeutic Touch Network website, you can find information about when courses are being offered, when there are group gatherings, practice groups. We practice online. Lots of groups practice in person, so we've got lots of options available. Beautiful. Thank you, ladies, for making the 100th episode. So much fun to be a part of, and I so appreciate when we get a chance to gather and have our conversations and see where they take us. It's always so enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is episode 100, and it's an amazing milestone for podcasting. The statistics are that anybody who starts a podcast usually doesn't make it past the 20th episode because they figure out either they've said what they wanted to say or their message isn't the way they wanted to say it. And so something happens and they usually end. So I've found that with the seasons that I've put together, I've grown and been empowered by the conversations and the wonderful people I get to bring onto the show. And this has been a way for me to really hone in some of my skills, but also to advance conversation. And in this last season, I have been very diligent. Yes, I own the Cape Breton Tea Company, but I really wanted to empower people with intention and herbs and understanding the power of herbs. That work comes from Evelyn Mulder's work with sound essences and also working with Western herbs. And I just want people to be able to be a little bit more present in their lives, have a little bit more that they can think about, and also while they're listening to have a healing session. And I think now, as I've talked about, that's how I set the podcast up. I think you can hear from our conversation today how easy it is to create the space for that healing session to happen. And I value that when I'm telling people, please listen to the podcast and enjoy the topics, but also give yourself that chance to have some time to do some healing and be present for yourself and to trust that the process can happen. So together we can advance health and wellness as a way of being rather than a goal that's far ahead of us and we can't trust it. So I empower you to have a listen to other podcasts, check out the other guests, and please share it with family and friends so that other people can learn and grow as well, and give everybody the opportunity to have these tools in their hands. So thanks, everyone. And we close that 100th episode.